After decades, Ginger Rogers would finally break her silence about what really happened during the filming, and what she revealed about Katharine Hepburn was nothing short of shocking. Before we reveal the truth, let us ask, do you think Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers got along behind the scenes? Type 1 for yes, O for no in the comments below. Let's dive right in to clarify this question. Curtain call of silence. Ginger Rogers and the Woman Upstairs. During Hollywood's golden age, few films captured the tension, ambition, and camaraderie of struggling actresses quite like Stage Door. Directed by the acclaimed Gregory La Cava, the film was both a critical and commercial success. Blending sharp dialogue with emotionally resonant performances, it remains a milestone in ensemble storytelling. Boasting a cast that included future legends like Ginger Rogers, Lucille Ball, Ann Miller, Eve Arden, and, most notably, Katharine Hepburn. At the time, Hepburn's career was at a crucial crossroads. Though she had already won an Academy Award for Morning Glory, her reputation in Hollywood was mixed. While critics admired her intelligence and fierce individuality, she was often labeled box office poison by studio heads due to a string of commercial disappointments. Stage Door, in many ways, was seen as both a risk and a revival, and Hepburn approached it with her usual unshakable determination. Ginger Rogers, already riding high on the fame of her sparkling dance musicals with Fred Astaire, played Jean Maitland, a street-smart, self-reliant young woman with a sharp tongue and a stubborn will. For Rogers, Stage Door marked a rare opportunity to showcase her dramatic skills outside the confines of elegant ballroom sequences and romantic musicals. Years later, she described the experience as creatively invigorating. It felt like a breath of fresh air, fast-paced, real, unpolished. We weren't playing fantasy, we were playing women with grit. But what really captured the imagination of future film historians were Rogers' behind-the-scenes recollections, many of which shed light on the fascinating dynamics between the cast, especially her interactions with Katharine Hepburn. They weren't meant to clash, but they did. Rogers, warm with crew and cast, thrived on connection. Hepburn was distant, reserved, often retreating into herself between takes. Ginger found it off-putting. "She's got an air," she reportedly muttered to Lucille Ball one day between setups. Not cruel, just observant. Katharine, in turn, didn't try to endear herself. She often rehearsed alone, and when the script was rewritten to strengthen her character, Terry Randall, Rogers noticed. It was subtle, but real, scenes reshaped, focus shifted. She'd been the lead. Now she was sharing the frame with a force that refused to blend. The camera loved them both, but in very different ways. Ginger glowed, lively, grounded, human. Katharine blazed, intense, angular, cerebral. In one scene, the characters spar verbally. The subtext between actresses was palpable, not just acting, but something unsaid, unsettled. Still, they were professionals. No open fights, no on-set scandals, just a quiet coldness, a backstage silence that never warmed. And now, the truth revealed. Ginger Rogers' hidden revelations about Katharine Hepburn's unique approach. Hepburn was no stranger to controversy or confrontation. From her choice to wear slacks around the studio lot, a scandalous decision at ICE the time, to her refusal to conform to Hollywood's cookie-cutter image of femininity, she carved her own path in an industry that demanded conformity. On the set of Stage Door, that defiance didn't disappear, it simply took a more subtle, intellectual form. According to Rogers, Hepburn came to the set with her lines meticulously prepared and her character deeply thought through. She treated the material not just as entertainment, but as meaningful art. In fact, one of the most iconic lines in the film, "The calla lilies are in bloom again," was actually a nod to Hepburn's own stage career. The line originally appeared in The Lake, a theatrical production Hepburn had starred in years earlier. Though the play itself was a failure, with critics famously calling her performance terrible, the inclusion of the line in Stage Door became a kind of private joke between Hepburn and those who followed her career closely. Rather than being offended, Hepburn embraced the self-referential moment. It was her way of owning past missteps with grace and humor. Tensions, talent, and unexpected sisterhood. One of the most surprising secrets Rogers shared was about the unique directing style of Gregory La Cava. Known for his improvisational approach, La Cava encouraged the actresses to ad-lib and often rewrote scenes at the last minute. But it also caused trouble. Let's dive deeper. The film's ensemble cast, composed of ambitious young women living together in a theatrical boarding house, created a uniquely collaborative atmosphere on set. At a time when many films followed rigid scripts and predictable beats, director Gregory LaCava broke convention by embracing improvisation. He encouraged overlapping dialogue, unscripted reactions, and spontaneous interactions among the actresses, believing it would breathe life into the characters' camaraderie and conflict. And he was right. The resulting performances captured an organic rhythm that mirrored real-life conversations and relationships, making the film feel startlingly modern for its time. However, this collaborative, loosely structured environment also highlighted the contrasting work styles and temperaments of the principal actresses, Lucille Ball and Ann Miller. Still relatively early in their Hollywood careers, eagerly embraced the chaos, learning quickly and injecting scenes with youthful exuberance. In contrast, Ginger Rogers and Katharine Hepburn, both more established and experienced in their own right, brought deeply different philosophies to their craft. Rogers, a product of the studio system, valued efficiency, sharp instincts, and adaptability, traits honed through years of making musicals and comedies at a breakneck pace. Hepburn, on the other hand, brought a stage-trained intensity and intellectual approach to every role she played. She was meticulous and unyielding in her commitment to character depth and emotional nuance. The clash between these two towering talents was inevitable, but also creatively fruitful. Off-screen, Rogers and Hepburn's differences occasionally created professional friction. Rogers would later reflect that while their interactions were not always smooth, they were rooted in their respective dedication to the craft, not in personal dislike. Hepburn's aloofness and cerebral focus could be intimidating, even standoffish, especially in contrast to Rogers' more grounded, warm, and humorous demeanor. Yet despite these tensions, or perhaps because of them, their on-screen relationship crackled with complexity. Rogers' portrayal of the streetwise and cynical Jean Maitland stood in sharp contrast to Hepburn's emotionally layered and aristocratic Terry Randall, a young woman seeking to prove her worth through talent rather than privilege. The dynamic between them, rivalry, misunderstanding, eventual respect, mirrored their real-life journey as collaborators. In interviews, Rogers insisted that she and Hepburn ultimately shared a deep respect for one another's abilities, acknowledging that their differences enriched the film rather than hindered it. Together, they anchored Stage Door in something deeper than showbiz sparkle. The film became more than just a behind-the-scenes look at aspiring actresses. It was a portrait of resilience, competition, and sisterhood under pressure. The tension between their characters lent emotional weight to the story's themes of ambition, loss, and self-discovery, resonating with audiences then and now. The authenticity of their performances, shaped as much by LaCava's improvisational techniques as by their real-life contrasts, helped elevate Stage Door from a clever ensemble comedy into a timeless exploration of women striving to find their voices in a male-dominated world. Big secret behind the scenes of Stage Door. One of the most touching behind-the-scenes anecdote stories Ginger Rogers ever shared from Stage Door involved the youngest member of the cast, the precariously talented Ann Miller. Just 14 years old at the time of filming, Miller had fibbed about her age in order to secure a role in the movie, an act of bold determination that underscored her fierce desire to break into Hollywood. Despite her youth, Miller carried herself with remarkable poise and professionalism. But the pressures of working on such a major studio film, surrounded by seasoned stars, could have been overwhelming. Sensing this, Rogers instinctively stepped in as a mentor and protector. Having once been a wide-eyed teenager herself trying to navigate the treacherous terrain of the entertainment industry, she recognized the mix of ambition, vulnerability, and untapped talent in Miller. Rogers took her under her wing, offering encouragement, guidance, and a steady presence that helped ease the young dancer into the world of studio filmmaking. She gave Miller advice on performance, helped her understand the intricacies of life on set, and, perhaps most importantly, treated her as a peer rather than a child. Years later, Ann Miller would speak openly and fondly about the impact Rogers had on her life and career. In interviews, she credited Rogers not only as a role model but as a formative figure whose generosity left a lasting impression. For Miller, the kindness shown by one of the most famous actresses in Hollywood was a powerful affirmation that talent and success could coexist with grace and compassion. And for Rogers, Watching Miller flourish was a quiet reminder of the importance of reaching back and lifting up the next generation. Their relationship became a shining example of the genuine camaraderie that developed among the cast of Stage Door, despite the competitive nature of their industry. In a film about aspiring actresses all vying for a shot at the spotlight, Rogers and Miller's real-life connection offered a glimpse of solidarity behind the scenes, a rare and touching alliance in an era when women in Hollywood were so often pitted against one another. Ginger Rogers' hidden revelations about Stage Door. Stage Door was more than a sharp, witty comedy drama. It was a bold reflection of the real challenges faced by women in show business. Beneath its fast-paced dialogue and theatrical humor, the film explored themes of ambition, rivalry, loneliness, and the often unforgiving pursuit of success. Katharine Hepburn's portrayal of Terry Randall, a wealthy outsider determined to earn her place through talent, not privilege, echoed Hepburn's own experience in Hollywood. Known for her intellect and fierce independence, she too had to battle an industry that favored superficial charm and typecasting over substance. Critics at the time took note of Hepburn's performance. In Stage Door, she revealed a newfound emotional depth and vulnerability, softening the cool, distant image that had previously defined her in the public eye. The role became a turning point, helping to solidify her reputation not just as a gifted actress, but as a fully dimensional woman whose presence on screen felt both commanding and relatable. Ginger Rogers, meanwhile, received wide praise for her portrayal of Jean Maitland, a savvy, grounded actress fighting for her big break. For Rogers, long identified with musical glamour and her iconic partnership with Fred Astaire, this role was a departure and a revelation. She proved she could carry a dramatic performance with equal strength, displaying grit, wit, and emotional honesty. Rogers would later reflect on how Stage Door changed the portrayal of women in film. Unlike the romanticized or secondary roles typically assigned to female characters in the 1930s, this film gave its women authentic voices, personal ambitions, and complex relationships. It was one of the first ensemble dramas to focus entirely on women, offering a rare, unfiltered glimpse into their professional struggles and emotional lives. In interviews throughout her later years, Rogers spoke with pride about the film's legacy. She believed Stage Door was ahead of its time, both in its progressive storytelling and its improvisational, collaborative spirit. The experience, she often said, remained one of the most personally fulfilling of her career. It allowed her to form deep bonds with her co-stars, stretch herself as a performer, and be part of a project that resonated with truth and heart. Thanks to Ginger Rogers' candid recollections, viewers today can appreciate Stage Door not only as a classic film, but as a rare cinematic moment when Hollywood dared to center women's stories with authenticity, nuance, and flair. Behind the glamour, there was grit, and behind the performances, a genuine portrait of female resilience and solidarity that continues to inspire. When Stage Door hit theaters in 1937, it was more than just a film. But before getting a role in Stage Door, where was Ginger Rogers? Keep watching if you want to know more about her secret revelation. Breakthrough role. Ginger was exposed to the world of performing arts for the first time at a young age. She spent most of her childhood in Fort Worth, Texas. During her daughter's career, her mother, Layla Rogers, who had previously worked as a newspaper reporter, playwright, and subsequently as a film producer, was a key figure in the management and direction of her daughter's careers. Following her victory in a Charleston dance competition when she was 15 years old, Ginger began her career as a vaudeville performer. This gave her the opportunity to get valuable stage experience and training that would prove to be beneficial in the years to come. She quickly shifted into the world of musical theater, and then she moved on to the world of cinema, where she originally landed modest roles in early talkies. Rogers' big break came in the early 1930s, when she was cast in the film 42nd Street 1933, a classic musical that catapulted her to the forefront of national attention. Her greatest recognition, however, was achieved through her work with Fred Astaire, beginning with the film Flying Down to Rio in 1933. Grace, athleticism, and emotional expression were all flawlessly interwoven in their performances, which were characterized by an electrifying connection between them. Over the course of the subsequent few years, the two actors appeared in a total of 10 great RKO musicals, such as Top Hat 1935, Swing Time 1936, and Shall We Dance 1937. They captivated viewers with their complex routines and unmistakable screen connection and won over audiences with their performances. The fact that Ginger Rogers was not only a decorative counterpart to Fred Astaire, but rather that she was on par with him was the primary reason for the significance of her contribution. Because of the power and expertise that she brought to their dances, the common term, "she did everything he did, but backwards and in high heels," became associated with the idea that she accomplished everything he did. The fact that she was able to seamlessly integrate elegance and roughness, as well as lightness and work, elevated her to the level of a genuine artist. She demonstrated that elegance and durability could coexist, and that women in Hollywood could command the same amount of attention and admiration as their male colleagues. Despite this, Rogers was a lot more than just a dancer. In her career as an actor, she displayed a wide variety of abilities and garnered praise for both tragic and humorous performances. For her performance in the 1940 film Kitty Foyle, for which she was awarded the Academy Award for Best Actress, she displayed the greatest degree of flexibility. She was able to represent a lady from the working class who was seeking love and independence, which gave her the opportunity to demonstrate emotional depth and honesty. This performance not only established her as one of the leading women in Hollywood, but it also demonstrated that she was capable of carrying a picture on her own. Rogers continued a successful cinema career throughout the 1940s and 1950s, acting in a variety of parts that demonstrated her capacity to adapt and develop in response to the shifting cultural norms of the period. Her comedic timing and dramatic talents were further showcased in films such as Roxy Hart, The Major and the Minor, and Monkey Business, among others. She also made a comeback to the theater, performing in musicals that were both on Broadway and on tour, and she went on to work in television, demonstrating her continued significance in the entertainment business. As Rogers began his acting career, he appeared in a variety of productions, including musicals and dramas, and he worked alongside notable actors like Cary Grant, James Stewart, and David Niven. Her oeuvre grew to encompass a diverse array of genres, ranging from romantic dramas to screwball comedy to films with a socially aware message throughout her career. As she grew older, she also began to perform on stage, appearing in Broadway shows such as Hello, Dolly, and Mame, which served to highlight her continuing charm and talent. Ginger Rogers was well known not just for her musical accomplishments, but also for her personal integrity, professionalism, and the strength of character she had. She was a political conservative and a devoted Christian, and she never wavered from her beliefs during her whole life, even when they were in direct opposition to the prevalent emotions in the entertainment industry. She had a profound sense of loyalty to her family, particularly to her mother, who served as her most trusted confidant and professional counselor. Rogers maintained her resiliency and independence in spite of the fact that she had a string of marriages that ended in divorce. She handled her own financial matters and professional choices with the same level of expertise and dignity. In the late 1960s, Ginger Rogers made her official retirement from the film industry, yet she continued to take part in public appearances, theater, and television into the 1980s that followed. Ginger, My Story, her autobiography, was released in 1991 and offered a frank look into the obstacles and victories she faced as a woman navigating the male-dominated world of entertainment. It was an intimate look into her life and career, providing genuine insights into the challenges and accomplishments she experienced. Furthermore, Ginger Rogers was revered not just for her artistic abilities, but also for her intelligence, grace, and independence. Throughout her life, she was a lady who was highly spiritual, had strong moral beliefs, and possessed a sense of dignity that influenced both her personal and professional aspects. She was very picky about the projects she worked on and never compromised her principles in order to get recognition. She had a tendency to select parts that showed her power and integrity. In her off-screen life, she was well known for her graciousness, her sense of humor, and her long-lasting connections with other celebrities, such as Lucille Ball and Bette Davis. Turbulent personal life. When it comes to her sexual relationships, Ginger Rogers, who is considered to be one of the most legendary actors and dancers in Hollywood, had a personal life that was complicated and sometimes chaotic. Rogers went through 5 marriages and divorces during the course of her lifetime. She was never able to have children, despite the fact that she had been married many times. This was a reality that would later cause her to reflect on her life with a mixture of acceptance and longing. Her private life frequently presented a different tale, one that was distinguished by brief couplings, emotional ups and downs, and a yearning for genuine companionship that proved elusive. Despite the fact that she had a lively and successful career on film, her private life sometimes offered a somewhat different picture. At an early age, Rogers embarked on his trip through the matrimonial process. She tied the knot for the very first time on March 29, 1929, when she was only 17 years old. Jack Pepper, a vaudeville performer and her dance partner at the time, was her husband. He was involved in the family business. Pepper, whose birth name was Edward Jackson Culpeper, was a gifted performer in his own way. The young pair originally started dating because they had a passion for music and dancing, which was what brought them together. Their marriage, on the other hand, ultimately did not last very long. Even though they had a lot of professional interests and were full of youthful excitement, they decided to part ways not long after the wedding. In 1931, the marriage was formally dissolved via the process of divorce. This early marriage, which Rogers went into while she was still on the verge of becoming an adult, may have been an early indicator of her struggle to establish a balance between the demands of her blossoming profession and the needs of her personal relationships. In 1932, not long after her divorce from Pepper, Rogers began a relationship with Mervyn LeRoy, a notable film director and producer who would go on to make significant contributions to the history of Hollywood with films such as Little Caesar and Random Harvest. Their romance, despite the fact that it did not terminate in marriage, was substantial enough to attract the attention of the public. Both sides apparently came to the conclusion that their lives were going in separate directions, which led to the conclusion that the relationship finally came to an end. In spite of the fact that they had broken up, Rogers and LeRoy continued to have a meaningful and long-lasting relationship that lasted for more than half a century, until LeRoy passed away in 1987. The fact that they were able to maintain a positive connection for a considerable amount of time after their romantic engagement is evidence of Rogers' capacity for emotional maturity and devotion in her personal relationships, even when those relationships did not turn out the way she had hoped they would. For the second time, Rogers tied the knot with actor Lew Ayres in 1934. Ayres was most recognized for his performance in the film All Quiet on the Western Front, which was released in 1930. This combo appeared to have potential. Both of them were well-known characters in the entertainment world and had work experiences that were comparable to one another. On the other hand, much like her previous marriage, this one was doomed to end in failure as well. The relationship got strained over time, most likely as a result of the demands of celebrity, different professional objectives, and the frequent separations caused by their job obligations. Despite the fact that they were together for 6 years, which is longer than any of her previous or subsequent marriages, the relationship became strained with time. In 1940, they divorced, putting an end to what many people had anticipated would be a secure and long-lasting union between this couple. Rogers tied the knot with Jack Briggs, her third husband, in 1943, when the tide of World War II was at its highest point. Briggs, a gorgeous and patriotic United States Marine, brought a different sort of presence into her life, one that was in contrast to the business partners she had previously worked with in the entertainment industry. A number of Hollywood celebrities were actively involved in attempts to bolster morale among the troops at the time of their wedding, which took place during a period in which the nation was deeply engulfed in wartime feeling. Her own participation in war bond campaigns and USO tours was something that Rogers had done. Despite the fact that the marriage began with a great deal of optimism, it progressively fell apart. This may have been the result of the difficulties associated with readjusting to civilian life after the war, as well as the relentless demands of Rogers' film career. As a result of 7 years of marriage, the couple divorced in the year 1950. In 1953, Rogers tied the knot with Jacques Bergerac, a dashing French actor who was 16 years her junior. This marriage would go on to become one of the most talked about marriages in her history. The two had first met while Rogers was on a vacation to Paris, and their whirlwind affair went on to become the topic of tabloid curiosity almost immediately after it began. In addition to his burgeoning career as an actor, Bergerac had also completed his legal education in France. He made the journey over the Atlantic to the United States and started a career in the film business. With the assistance of Rogers' contacts, he was inspired by Rogers and intrigued by the attraction of Hollywood, which led him to settle in the United States. Their union garnered notice not just due to the fact that it was a cross-cultural union, but also due to the significant age gap that existed between the two of them. In spite of the glitz and glitter that surrounds their relationship, problems that were more fundamental quickly surfaced. The shift that Bergerac made into the Hollywood scene was met with a mixture of success, and it is possible that the strains of living in Rogers' enormous shadow had an effect on the strain that the couple was under. They had been together for 4 years when they separated in 1957. The fifth and final marriage of Rogers was to William Marshall, who was a director and producer. In 1961, the couple married at the wedding, and for a period of time, their union looked to have promise. This was especially true when they went on a joint creative endeavor by establishing a film production firm that was situated in Jamaica. This time of her life, on the other hand, was characterized by a growing sense of instability. They had friction in their relationship as a result of Marshall's battles with alcoholism, and their professional partnership faltered as a result of the strain of mismanagement and financial troubles. Not only did the failure of their production firm deliver a significant blow to Rogers' aspirations to become a producer, but it also ultimately resulted in the dissolution of their marriage. 1970 was the year when they divorced, putting an end to what would be her last effort at a married life. Later years. Ginger Rogers, a great actress, singer, and dancer, spent the latter years of her life dividing her time between two cherished properties that symbolized her profound affinity to both the world of glamour and the world of peace. During the winter months, Rogers made his home in Rancho Mirage, California, a tranquil and wealthy town that is located in the Coachella Valley close to Palm Springs. Rancho Mirage, which has been recognized for a long time as a refuge for Hollywood's elites and political leaders, provided Rogers with both the seclusion that she enjoyed and a social milieu that was suitable for her illustrious career in the entertainment sector. Her luxurious desert house, which was encircled by palm trees and desert blossoms, offered her a tranquil haven in which she could contemplate a life that had included performing on vaudeville stages, in Hollywood musicals, and in serious parts in cinema and theater. Rogers would escape the dry heat of the California desert and go north to Medford, Oregon, a scenic town in the Rogue Valley that is famed for its lush landscape and slower pace of life. When summer arrived, he would leave the desert and head to Medford. Rogers had fallen in love with the natural splendor of southern Oregon many years previously, and he finally acquired land in that region. Not only did she use her summer house in Medford as a place to relax, but it also became a location where she was actively involved in the community around her hometown. She was considered to be cordial and friendly with both her neighbors and her admirers, and she was well known for her participation in cultural events and her support of the local artists. Rogers was able to take a break from the limelight and enjoy the peace and quiet of Oregon life, which provided a reminder of her deeply ingrained ideals and appreciation for the joys that are more straightforward. Death and legacy. In a tragic turn of events, Ginger Rogers passed away on April 25, 1995, when she was 83 years old. An exceptional life that had impacted millions of people across decades came to an end when she passed away from a heart attack at her home in Rancho Mirage. An extraordinary life. Her demise was lamented not just by fans all around the world, but also by fellow actors, dancers, and admirers who saw her as a pioneering force in American cinema. Her loss was well received by all of these groups. Her brilliant dance opposite Fred Astaire, her Academy Award-winning portrayal in Kitty Foyle, and her unusual ability to mix humorous charm with tragic depth were all recalled in the flood of tributes that flowed in. To the very end, Rogers had continued to be a symbol of elegance and persistence, and she had never lost touch with the composure and discipline that had characterized her performance throughout her career. In the aftermath of her passing, Rogers was cremated, and her ashes were laid to rest in Oakwood Memorial Park Cemetery in Chatsworth, California. This tranquil cemetery is located in the San Fernando Valley, and it is the final resting place of a number of notable figures from the Hollywood industry. She was put to rest there next to her cherished mother, Layla Emma Jean Rogers, who had been a significant influence on her daughter's life and career. Layla Emma Jean Rogers had been a strong influence on her daughter. There was more to Layla than just being a mother. Ginger's manager, mentor, and constant companion, she was fiercely dedicated and unwaveringly supportive. She was Ginger's daily companion. The gravestone that they both share is a monument to their relationship, which is one of the most lasting mother-daughter alliances in the history of Hollywood. As a way of paying tribute to the remarkable lady who was instrumental in defining the golden age of Hollywood, visitors to the cemetery frequently lay flowers or pause for a moment of meditation at their tombstone. Stage Door became a classic, and both women would go on to become legends. But that brief moment in 1937, that storm of talent, ego, fear, and brilliance, gave us more than just a film. It gave us a glimpse into the real lives of Hollywood's most iconic women. What do you think? Was Katharine Hepburn misunderstood? Was Ginger right to finally tell the truth? Comment below. Like if you've ever seen Stage Door. Subscribe for more incredible stories from the golden age of Hollywood. Because behind every curtain, there's a story waiting to be told.